Hi, Renee.
Hello, Marvina. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am well, thank you. Yeah,
Okay, good. That's
can't
good.
complain.
Can't complain. Yep.
Yeah,
I'll try not to say that, but thank you for that.
yeah. We're all praying for your retirement, so
Yep. Yes, Jesus.
yeah,
I receive it.
yeah. Oh, God.
So we are at episode 75.
Wow,
I know,
that's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
Um, Episode 75 into the name of our podcast today is I Can't See It.
Okay. All right.
We're going to be talking about finding finding assurance that God is always working, even when we can't see it.
Even when we can't see it. Yep.
Yeah, and it's something that we hear all the time, right? We hear that in church or just, talking to other believers. We're always reassuring each other
Hmm.
but I think really taking a close look, just really looking at that is important. Um, Coming off of our last podcast talking about our Goliath, right?
Right.
Kind of tying that in, like sometimes we just so focused, we only see the problem,
Yeah.
and God is doing something
Right.
behind that problem that we don't see,
Right.
right? Um, I wrote down here, sometimes God is moving in ways our natural eyes can't yet recognize.
Right.
And I think as we move through life, as we move through the seasons we are in life, we have to remember that.
Right.
That God is always doing something. I've had many, many, many moments in my life where, you initially see you see the problem and you're like, ah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, here we go. But what gives me strength a lot of times and gives me that get up and go is like, okay, God, I know you're working behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Know you're working even when I can't see you.
Hmm.
And keeping my eye on you, which helps to keep my eye on the prize. Uh,
Right.
I think, sometimes we have faith. We do. We have faith, but we still can't see. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we can't see what's going on. And
Yeah.
so that could be a little bit mind-boggling sometimes. And, you
Yeah.
know, it could just be like, okay, God, like I need you to help me get there. But again, having the reassurance and knowing that God is working behind the scenes, right?
Right.
Working when we can't see him. As I was preparing for this podcast, I came across the story of Elisha, right? Elisha
Okay.
in Second Kings, um and his servant um and it's actually good. It's a good story. Now, okay, I'm gonna be get a little off track here a little bit, but the Bible is full of drama. You
It
know,
is, yes.
and I say that not in a bad way because sometimes we're drawn to drama.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes, but it's a good drama. But I think again, I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast. That's why I like the Old Testament so much because it reads like stories, right? And I'm like,
They
what?
did what? Yeah,
What was going on?
yeah, yeah.
And so, but in Second Kings and talking about Elisha, um, and Elisha had a servant, and I suggest it's too much to kind of go into. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I would encourage our followers to read that portion of scripture, and that's in Second Kings, the sixth chapter.
Okay.
But what stuck out to me was Elisha's prayer to open his servant's eyes, right?
Mhm.
Because um, it was a a situation where Elisha was, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here and
That's good.
getting a little bit off, but it was a situation where Elisha was in a battle and his servant, woke up, looked out the window, basically. I'm paraphrasing here, but and just saw saw the enemy,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And everyone that was against them. Um, so verse 15 of that scripture, because this will help me get to where I'm going, says, when Elisha's servant woke up and saw the city surrounded by enemy horses and chariots, he was terrified and cried out, "Oh no, my Lord, what shall we do?"
Hmm.
Right? And
Hmm.
sometimes life is just very overwhelming. And
Hmm.
all we see is the enemy in the hills and what is coming against us.
Hmm.
What I loved was that Elisha prayed, Lord, open his eyes.
Hmm.
Elisha was like, there's more of us than them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And after he prayed, the servant's eyes were opened and he
Right.
was able to see that.
Right.
But sometimes we just get so caught up at what it looks like in our first inclination, the first thing that we see. Again, tying back to the Goliath, and we get
Hmm.
so we're overwhelmed with everything that we see.
Hmm.
But God
Hmm.
is always working behind
Right.
what we see.
Right.
I've had a lot of situations in my life, even where I've prayed for certain things, and I'm like, God, I believe that I've been positioned right and I'm ready for this thing. And God says no. And because I grew up in church and I don't want to be shooketh, there I have enough to be like, okay, God, I know you have it, you got it in control, and who am I to
Right.
question you? But at the same time, it's overwhelming, and it's like, but sometimes it is like, but God, why? Like I thought it was now. Why not now? Sometimes God
Hmm.
is doing something, He's preparing us, He's working out a situation. Now, hindsight, like once you get through that thing, or this was has happened to me, I'm gonna make it personal to me. I can stay on track better that way. Um,
Yeah.
God has shown me in my rear view sometimes, looking back at the situation, girl, that is not what you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
was not the timing, and I am so grateful for that. But at the moment, it's like, God, what are you doing? Like, I thought this was my time. I thought it was time for me to move forward in whatever it is, or I thought that you were going to be removing this thing. I thought
Hmm.
that you were going to remove that person, remove that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to get through whatever it is that we need to get through and
Hmm.
look back, and then we see, wow, God,
Hmm.
get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes we can see Him moving after we've gotten through the thing of, gotten through whatever it is.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think of it sometimes if you think of God as his orchestration, right?
Mhm.
He's an orchestrator.
Mhm.
And you think of it sometimes if you're listening to a symphony piece that's been
Mhm.
written, and let's
Ah,
say,
oh, bougie symphony.
bougie.
Okay.
I like it. Um, but if the conductor
Uh-huh.
is having just the woodwinds play their part,
Hmm.
okay, and you
Hmm.
hear that, it's okay. It sounds
Hmm.
okay. And then he has his percussion play their part.
Hmm.
Okay, well, that sounds okay.
Hmm.
And then you've got the whatever it is, I don't know, all the different things that come up,
Right, right.
right? And separately, it's like, okay, well, that doesn't sound that. Why are but you put it all together
Yes.
and it creates a symphony. And like you say, sometimes we want the symphony right away. We want to have the I see you, I know what you're doing. And then you hear the woodwinds and you go, well, what are you doing that for?
Right,
That's not bringing me to the point that I want to see or hear.
right.
But he's going, well, let me get these things in place. Let me, like you say, we don't know the specifics of what it's going to take to bring you out of a situation
Mhm,
or forward you in a situation,
mhm.
right? We can't see it, but we just have to trust that whoever's orchestrating this
Yes,
is putting everything in its proper place when it's meant to be, right?
right. That's right. We
Yeah.
have to know God is working even when we can't see him.
Yeah.
And that is the amazing thing. Like I said, I've had so many situations in my life, and we go through different seasons in life. And as we're getting older, I think your eyes are a little more hmm, physically, I don't know about the eyes,
We'll
getting
go
better.
spiritualize. Yeah.
But your spiritual eyes get a little more in tuned and
Hmm.
focused in, right? Because you've lived life. You've
Hmm.
come through certain experiences.
Hmm.
You're on the other side of them.
Right.
And I think it's very important for for not only us to realize that God is still present when we can't see him, but for us to share that with others,
Hmm.
especially where we are now in the world. There's so much going on, and there's so much chaos, and there's so much that looks so dark.
Hmm.
But those of us that have lived life experiences, and I'm not saying just in age, I'm saying
Hmm.
even in experience, because it's an exchange. We learn a lot from even, younger folks, and but to keep our eyes focused on, it's not just about what we see. And
Hmm.
knowing God is ever present, and knowing God is present in the unseen, and he's working behind the scenes, right? We
Hmm.
see, like, just as much for our podcast, for instance, our community, they see you, they see me, but there's a lot of work on the other side
Hmm.
of the podcast, right? Or different, when we see the different shows we watch, and there's a cameraman behind there that you never, ever, ever see,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Right.
But that person is responsible for catching certain angles, and
Hmm.
being able to capture not only the picture of what you see, but to evoke emotion through what is captured.
Right.
There's a lot of work on the other side, right?
Hmm.
And as we look at like actors and actresses, we just see them, we just see the face, we just see,
Right.
and there's people behind that never get any kind of accolades um publicly.
Right.
But that's where all the hard work is done.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
easy to show up cute. I mean, sometimes cute, but
Yeah.
it's catching those certain angles that are going to evoke certain emotions or project a certain way. And I
Hmm.
think that's the same way God works in our lives. Even when we just see what's going on here, but there's a lot of things that God is doing in the background, because he has a purpose for us to get to this destination sometimes we don't even know. And I
Right.
think sometimes we deal with disappointment.
Hmm.
Maybe sometimes we think unanswered prayer.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, all these different things, when God is still working on those things, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
I always I think about my grandmother, my mom, my dad's mom. We spent a lot of time with my grandmother growing up,
Hmm.
and I believe that I benefit a lot now from prayers that she prayed many
Hmm.
years ago.
Hmm.
Right? And that goes the same for parents. Sometimes, and just speaking from a place of, as parents, we worry
Hmm.
sometimes about our children, the course of their lives, and not even parents, but um also, elders in our lives and aunts and uncles. And sometimes we worry about, okay, God, what is going on? Like, this is what I see going on with that
Mhm.
child, right? That
Right.
niece, that nephew, that young cousin, that child. And we're like, what is going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where I think we really have to rely on our faith, and we have to know that God is a God that, again, works behind the scenes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And tying that back into kind of what I was saying, with my grandmother, we, my family growing up, um, my, immediate family, I haven't always been a Christian. You know what I'm saying? I was part of different religions, and I can only imagine what was going through my grandmother's head at that time.
Mm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Because she brought her children up a certain way, right? But
Mhm.
we all have our own path, and we all seek differently, even though we may have been taught a different way.
Right.
But remembering as a child, as seeing my grandmother still stand strong in her faith without pushing away or being, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of, just not pushing away, just still loving,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I believe that it helped me at when I got to the age of where I could choose how I wanted to walk
Hmm.
and how to walk with God. I believe that had a lot of bearing on it because I
Yeah.
had an example in front of me of, what a Christian looked like. And also, so as I've grown, what I'm understanding more and more, and I've, gone through things with my children, and like it really helps me to see how my grandmother walked through things. Like,
Hmm.
as a now looking through an adult eyes, I'm like, how did she feel when her children didn't choose the life that she chose for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
that she prayed about for them,
Right.
that you know what I'm saying? And so, but she was faithful to
Hmm.
know that, God, even if I don't see it, I know what you're gonna do.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think we have to have that same, I don't know if it's fortitude. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's
Yeah.
the word coming to my mind right
Yeah.
now. Um, but just resting in knowing that God is going to do what he says he's going to do,
Hmm.
even if we don't see it. You know, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I go
No,
back
good.
to tying into our last episode. You can't get thrown by by what is in front of you,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You gotta know that God is moving still on your behalf
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Right.
He always has our best interests at heart, always,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't feel like it at first.
Yeah.
Why, God, why didn't you give me that? I've been praying, I've been declaring, why
Yeah.
didn't you? And God said, that's not what you need.
Yeah.
It could be a not now thing or a period.
Right. Right. Yeah. And sometimes, like you say, it's right in front of us, so we can see it. Other
Hmm.
times we don't see the workings of God. And I think he does it on purpose because we think so highly of ourselves that if he were to say, okay, here's what I'm going to do now, and you're going to be going, well, you know what? If you did this, it would be simpler. If you
Yep,
convicted that person, it would be better. If it would,
yep.
you know what I'm saying? So we always have a better way. So he's probably just going, I got to do it this way because you
That's
people are
right.
just in my way all the time, you
All
know?
the time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
uh, when we started talking about this, we limit God. We give him boundaries, in our minds and in what we see. We've limited him. Well, he's not working. We don't see it, so he's not working. I came across a story of, have you heard of Corey Ten Boom? No? Okay. She was they were a Christian family, and I believe it was in the Netherlands that they lived. And during the Nazi occupation, she and her family hid Jewish people,
Mhm.
and they got caught. And
Mhm.
so she and her sister were sent to a horrific, overcrowded concentration camp as punishment.
Okay.
And so they were put in Barrack 28,
Okay.
which was known to have a terrible flea infestation.
Okay.
So Corey, again, a believer in God, a follower of the Lord, she was horrified by the conditions, and
Mhm.
she was just complaining and just, why would God do this to us? And her sister says, in everything we need to give thanks, which
Mhm.
I'm sure irritated Corey quite a bit, because like, I don't get it. We're in the worst place, and how can you say
Yeah.
in all things give thanks? But what happened was the fleas became a reason why the guards never came into that barrack and
Mhm.
checked on the prisoners. Well, the
Mhm.
two sisters had brought a Bible in, unbeknownst to the guards, and they were able to hold Bible studies in that barrack.
Okay.
And there were women who gave their life to the Lord
Got it. Yeah.
through this. So just to look at the circumstance, it was like, you tell me, God, what in the world? I can't see it. What in the world good is this going to do?
Yeah.
And he's going, but I have a reason. I have a purpose. And to think of all of those people who came out of that situation, out of that barrack
Mhm.
with faith in God, faith in that they could carry with them moving
Mhm.
into life. And the fleas initially seemed like a curse, but
Mhm.
became a divine safeguard.
Yeah.
They couldn't see it.
Sometimes delay is development. It's not delay is development, right? You're
Yeah,
being developed in the delay,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
God is amazing. And, there's so many stories again, and that's why it's good to look back, right?
Mm-hmm,
Sometimes all history is not good. We know that for a fact, right?
mm-hmm,
There's
mm-hmm,
not a lot of positive, but the way people got through
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
is a great testimony to their because all they had was their faith,
Right, right.
right? And
Mm-hmm,
I often think that, you know, even being, you know, even being an African American and with a lot of the things that have we've endured,
mm-hmm,
I often have to think about how those before me held on to their faith. That's
mm-hmm.
all they have. And girl, you got the nerve to be upset because you got to get up to go to work.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is sometimes we have to look back because the things that we're dealing with,
Mm-hmm,
and I'm not saying, and I don't want to minimize anything that anybody is dealing with, but
mm-hmm,
sometimes again, it looks like way bigger than it is.
mm-hmm,
But looking back at that story, like again, to have enough faith,
mm-hmm.
because even though the fleas may have helped to detour some things, they still had to deal with those fleas.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Being bit, being not knowing if a guard was gonna come in, not knowing what your next moment was gonna look like.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it puts into perspective sometimes for us. We have the comforts
Mm-hmm,
of life
mm-hmm.
sometimes. And we still choose to not, it goes, like we talked about in our last podcast. Sometimes we refuse to deal with the giant, or we refuse to see beyond what's going on right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
just cannot imagine those two sisters, the amount of fear that they must have been dealing
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
but to still push through,
Mm-hmm.
not only for themselves, but for others,
Right. Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That are in there with them, to know that God is there's a purpose for what we're dealing with. And
Right.
it's hard to shift your mind sometimes because the problem is so big,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, and what you're dealing with, or it's so intense.
Mm-hmm.
But to know that behind this, God has something, there's something. God is
Yeah.
doing something. God
Yeah.
is working something. God is saving somebody. God is like, that is awesome,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because it's very hard to focus on what you can't see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have to remember that he's not surprised by anything,
Not
you
anything.
know. It's like, what, your grandchildren are what? It's he's not surprised. He's working on their behalf. You don't
Right.
know what it's going to take for them. You might be praying for your kids, for your grandkids, and it
Yes,
seems like nothing's happening. You don't know what struggle is in that child's heart because of
that's
your
right.
prayers.
That's
Because
right.
God's answering. He's dealing with it, and
God,
they're battling, you know. And so you just have to believe that if you can't see it, it doesn't mean that God's not working.
that's
He's
right.
doing something, you
Yeah.
know.
Even
And
when,
even you think a game of chess, you're
mhm,
not going to know what your opponent, the next move he's going to make,
right.
right?
Even though you try to anticipate it.
Yeah,
Right. That's
yeah. But you see him making, oh, I wouldn't have made that move.
right.
And God's going, you don't get it.
Exactly. It ain't up to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And you
You
don't get it. You
you
don't,
don't know
right.
where I'm going on this board, so you don't get it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And given the game of chess, not that I know a whole bunch about chess, I keep saying I'm
Um,
going to take up chess, but I can, I can imagine one move, somebody makes one move, right? But they're really setting up for two moves down the road,
hmm hmm
right? They're positioning their, I don't know what it is, man, whatever, king,
Yeah,
well, whatever they are, queen.
yeah,
Well, I know the overall. Anyway, focus,
yeah,
Mark.
yeah.
So, but it's not just that move. You're making a move in anticipation of two moves down the road, right?
Right, right.
Or even moving in anticipation of how the opponent is going to move. And
hmm
sometimes is what God is doing behind the scene. He's allowing this to happen because he is setting up a move for the opponent down the road.
hmm hmm
And so, um, you know, this conversation can go so many different ways.
Yes, it
I
could.
mean,
Yeah.
but we have to trust or think about what does it look like? What does it look like to trust without evidence, right?
hmm hmm
And that's kind of, I mean, that question is because we do have evidence, right?
Correct.
We do
Yes.
have
Yes.
evidence of God's hand. It
Right.
might not be that specific situation, but we do have we have evidence of God working behind the scenes
Right.
all the time.
Right.
We just have to get our focus right.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I go back to Elisha and that prayer. God, open his eyes. God,
Right.
open my eyes.
Right.
Help me to not open my eyes because then I can see beyond what I see.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And you said it at the top of the episode. God has done things, and you just said it a second ago. God has done things in your life that hindsight you go, oh, that was the perfect way to go. That he kept me from so much. And that goes back to the point we made in our last episode. Know your God. If he did that for you before
Mm-hmm.
and was working behind the scenes so that this story, like you said in a movie set, this story could play out perfectly,
Yes.
then know your God. Know that whatever
Right.
you're facing now, you can't see it.
Yep.
You can't see the end. You can't see the improvement, anything. Step back and go, but I know my God, and I know He is working on my behalf, even though I
Yeah.
can't see it.
That is that yes, that is so right. I was looking for there's a one of my favorite artists. I don't want to misquote what he says in my song, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it here quickly, but um let's see if I can see.
That's okay. While you're doing that, I'll just read the scripture that I wrote
Okay.
down. So give you a
Okay.
little time there. My scripture was Romans 8:28, where it says, all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. It doesn't say,
Mm-hmm.
when God feels like it, things are going to work out, or, once in a while you may get lucky, luck of the
Mm-hmm.
draw, and things may be okay.
Right.
He says all things work together for good. Does it say that we'll know each step that he's taking? No. Does it say that we will approve of the steps that he's taking? No. It says all things. That's where we have to put our faith and our trust, is that they're all going to work together for good because we are called by him. We are walking with him.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I found it. So it's a quote. Kirk Franklin. I love him. He's always been one of my favorite artists because he's just very out the box for the church at the time. Now it's pretty common to be kind of out the box, but
Okay. Yeah.
anyway. So in one of his songs, he says, if what you see is all you see, then you do not see all there is to be seen.
Oh, very good.
And that has and when I heard it, that's one of those things that have just stuck out to me because that's true. If what you see is all you see, then you do not see all there is to be seen,
Wow. That's
right?
powerful. Yeah.
And that's why our faith we have to know, God, I know you got me in spite of whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though I don't see it. And even in my life today, I have to remember that when situations come up, we're dealing with, we're as a society now, we're dealing with all type of things. We're dealing with family things. We're dealing with illnesses. We're dealing with, seeing people in just really does dire situations,
Right.
but we cannot allow our focus to be on that. We have to know that, God, if you've bringing me to it, you're going to bring me through it.
Right. Right.
However that may look. I often think about you shared stories of your sister-in-law. Um her name was it Lo it wasn't Lois. Is it her name Lois?
Oh, my brother-in-law's sister. Yes,
Yes,
Lois.
Lois.
Yes, yes.
And how she could not get stuck on what it looked like,
Right. Right.
right?
Hmm.
Um, and for those that don't know the story, I believe your brother's sister had ALS,
ALS, correct. Yes.
battled with it, but you always talk about her faith and
Hmm.
how strong she was in her faith, right?
Right.
And how she didn't succumb to the disease spiritually and just the way she moved through life.
Right.
And like you got to be able to see what can't be seen to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. She battled with a rare form of ALS.
Mm,
Usually, typically ALS will be 2 to 5 years is what the typical lifespan is. She lived with it for 25 years. It was a rare form. She could not feed herself. She had a feeding tube, could not move. If
mm,
her head dropped, someone had to help assist her. She was in a wheelchair for
yeah.
years. But one day she comes in with her wheelchair, her electronic wheelchair, and she can't speak at this point. There's no
Mm,
speaking or anything. She had a little license plate on the back of her wheelchair.
mhm.
It says, God is great.
Yeah.
And I thought, my goodness,
Yep.
that you could put that on your chair
Yep.
and be going through that, but
Yep.
still know, I can't see it, Lord,
Yep.
but I know you're great. I know whatever you're doing.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
That is so it's so true. And I think about that often, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Because again, we can't get focused on our Goliath and what we can't see.
Right, right. Yep, yep, absolutely. So he knows the purpose,
Hmm.
so we have to release control to his orchestration.
Hmm.
Yep,
We have to. The question I have, and this is my last comment.
we'll see. Yeah.
But I wrote down here, what do you do when God feels silent and you can't see him moving?
Mm,
What do you do?
yeah.
And I think that's what we have to ask ourselves sometimes in the moment, in the midst of whatever it is we're dealing with, whatever it is we're going through. God, what do you want me to do?
Hmm. Hmm.
You feel silent, but I know you're there.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
do you want me to do?
yeah. And do that Elijah prayer.
Yeah.
Lord, open my eyes.
Lord, open my eyes.
Yeah,
Lord,
yeah,
open my eyes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
So with that,
I think I think that's something we need to work on, huh?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
think this balances out our last podcast because we went a little long.
yeah, yeah.
So deep. It was so much. So it balances. This one is a little bit short.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. There you go. And actually backs up our last episode. Just,
Yes, right.
just know
Isn't
your
that
God.
amazing how God does that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know how he just things work in tandem, you
yep.
know?
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so yeah.
All
Well,
right.
Renee, did you have anything else?
I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good as well. So, all right. Well, um, you enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Okay.
Until next time,
Until next time, you take care.
you too, Renee.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Bye.